What's up, guys? How's it going? MikeTheTech here. Welcome to episode 2 of our Unity tutorial. We just finished installing our Unity engine 2019.2, 0.17 F1, and we're going to go ahead and jump back to our projects and create our first project together. Now I'm going to go ahead and hit this new button, this blue new button. It seems kind of weird that there's an add button as well, but add is if you have a project you downloaded or a project you're importing from another computer and you just want to show Unity Hub where that is. New actually creates a new project. So in our new project, we're going to go ahead and name this. I'm going to name it YouTube Tutorial 2020. Start the new year right, and we're going to choose a 3D project. Now 2D is obviously a 2D game, 3D is a 3D game. Template we can always change within, and then we'll talk more about our high definition render pipelines and lightweight render pipelines in the future. This is more for if you're creating a game that you want to look really realistic with nice lighting and volumetric fog and things like that, and the lightweight is if you're making mobile games and want things to run a lot quicker, but we just want to learn the engine itself, which is generally good to choose 3D to start with, and then we can move forward with more things in the future. So we're going to go ahead and create this project right now. Now, one thing you should have is Microsoft Visual Studio 2017 installed, or whatever version happens to be the latest at the time you're watching this. Usually it comes installed with Unity, and I know I didn't install it directly. Unity had that installed, but just in case you didn't get it installed, you will need to install Visual Studio 2017 or a similar code editor, as we're going to be using C# in this tutorial. So you're going to want to make sure that you have an editor that can edit that code. I'm going to be using Visual Studio, so if you're following along, it might be a good idea to use that as well, but that is totally up to you. There's a lot of different choices as to what to get, but as I mentioned, I believe it comes with Unity now, but if not, you can get it from the Microsoft website. But yeah, here is Unity, and in all of its greatness. This is the main game window. We can look around by using our right mouse button, right clicking and dragging around. You can zoom in and out with the middle mouse button, and you can select things with the left mouse button. We can see we have two objects in our game. One is a directional light and one's a camera. If we look on the left side, we have our tools up here, which for example, do different things when you're using the editor. Like if I chose this rotate tool, I would be able to rotate a camera, as opposed to the move tool where I would be able to move a camera. And we also have scale tools and all these different editing tools that we'll go over more in the future. Basically, the ones we're going to be using most are move, rotate, and scale. On the left side, we have our hierarchy window, and our hierarchy window is everything in our game. So you can see we have our main camera and our directional light, and that's everything in our game. On the right side, we have our inspector window, and when we click on any item in our hierarchy, it gives us all of our options for that object on the right side. So we see we have a camera, but we also have a lot of different options for that camera, like field of view, depth, occlusion, culling, all these great different things, right? We also have our directional light, which we can change the color and basically strength of. But on the bottom, we have a project window. Now you might say, what's the difference between a hierarchy and our project window, since they both essentially have a bunch of assets? Well, this is essentially the folder of our game. So everything that we're putting into the actual folder itself is going to show up here. So I might drag in like 50 assets into the folder, but only actually use 1 or 2 in the game. So we want to keep these separate, because when we save our game, we only want to save it with the assets we're using, not the usually large amounts of resources that we have while developing the game itself. So this is everything in our folder. This is everything being used in our scene. Excuse me. So speaking of, we want to create something new. So we're actually going to go down to our project scene here, and we can either use this create button, or we can right click in our scene and go to create to actually create a new script. We're going to be using C#, So we're going to go to create a C# script. You can also create other things like folders for organization, or even new materials and animations, which we'll get into later. But let's go ahead and go to a new C# script and type in hello world. This is always the first thing every programmer learns to do, is how to say hello world. It's like your first words as a programmer. And we're going to open that up. We can see that we have our preview window telling us everything in our script. We're going to double click on this to open it in Visual Studio 2017. Now, this might look really daunting or kind of overwhelming, hard to use, whatever you want to call it. It really isn't. It's really, really powerful. So there are a lot of features involved in it, but we only really need to see it as a text editor and editing this bit of text here. If you only look at it as that and ignore everything else, aside from, of course, the save buttons, it's a lot less daunting to get started with, and you'll start to actually use the other features a lot more as you learn and use it more often. It's really made to make your life easier. So here we have our code. We have our usings, which is basically which assemblies we are adding to our project, which packages. So if I was making a touchscreen game, I might need a package for touchscreens. If I was adding a user interface with this code, I might need the UI package. But these are which packages or collections that you're going to be adding to or using with code within this script. And then going further, we have our class, which is basically the whole code itself. We have our functions within that, which are start and update. If you've used other programming languages before, or even some of the other drag and drop interfaces, you may know of these as basically start and update functions, or start and step functions. The start function happens once. As soon as the code is loaded, it loads up the start function, runs it once, and then stops. The update function runs every frame of your game, which means that if it's 60 frames a second, it's going to happen 60 times. So you want to be careful adding things here, because it can quickly overload a machine and make it go really slow. You want to optimize things as much as you can. But for collisions, an update would be a great place to do that. We also have fixed update, which is another type of update that also makes use of time and the physics engine to make sure that everything is lined up, even if your computer isn't running, whether it's running 45 frames a second or 120 frames a second, it's still going to happen all at the same time. But we'll get into that later. I've said that a lot. The Unity is great. There's so much to learn. So in the start function, we want to print some text into our console window. Now, our console window is neatly hidden in this bar right here, as well as in this tab. We can read all of our console and debug information right here and see, was there errors, was there issues with our script, is everything printing correctly. We can use this really easily to test and debug our scripts. So the first thing we want to do is print some text to that window to make sure that everything's talking to each other properly. Like we're talking to the program's talking to us. Copacetic. Let's go ahead and start with print, and we see that it recognizes it as a mono behavior, and we're going to put it in parentheses, and we see that it already closed our parentheses for us. Now, if we're putting a variable here, we could just type the variable, but we're actually going to type text, so we need to put quotes. So I'll put quotation marks, and it again adds our second pair of quotation marks to close it, and I'm going to type hello world. Hello world. And we'll go ahead and put I almost forgot, we're going to put a semicolon at the end of this. After every line of code, or most lines of code, after every declaration of code, you need to add a semicolon. So we're going to hit save and minimize this and go ahead and start our game. And remember, nothing's going to happen here because we haven't actually put our code into the game. It's still only in our project folder, so we shouldn't expect to see anything in the console. I'm going to hit play. Super anticlimactic, I know, but we got to test. And nothing comes up. Great. So we want to put our code and attach it to a certain object. So we have two objects in our game, our camera and our light. And let's go ahead and add it to our camera, because that's going to be like our main character anyway. So let's go to project, and there's two ways we can do this. We can either drag it in and let it go there, or you can actually go to add component and start typing hello, and you'll see hello world, which is our script. Now that it's attached to our camera, it should run that hello world print as soon as the game runs. So let's go ahead and go to our console and hit play. And you will see that hello world, Unity engine model behavior using print, and it says it on here, hello world. So even if we're in our project view, we can still see that it printed properly. So it works, success. So let's go ahead and open that back up, and we can change this to anything we want. We can say, hooray, it worked. Our first line of C#. And I'll hit save. And if I hit play, you'll see, hooray, it worked. Our first line of C#. Great. So it looks like we're running a little past 10 minutes. I try to keep everything at 10. It looks like we're at 11. Sorry about that, but more videos on the way, and we'll delve a little deeper into the Unity game engine. All right. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day. Peace.